Welcome to the Football Guys Dynasty Show. It's me, your favorite professional nerd, Jagger May. And then with me, as always, is our Dynasty captain, Jeff Bell. And we have our Dynasty trade show. I went a different route. I polled Twitter, the darkest place on the world, or X, if you're into that, whatever you want to call it. And you guys gave me some doozies. We've got some Caleb Williams trades to start us off, Jeff. Samuel runs FFB, our fantasy football, on Twitter. Sent Jonathan Brooks a 25 first and a 25 second for Caleb Williams and a fourth. I think that's pretty cheap for Caleb Williams. A lot of people think that Caleb Williams sucks. We're ranking Drake May ahead of him. Well, that might be valid for fantasy for the simple fact of the rushing floor, but I don't. This whole Drake May or Caleb Williams is a bust thing, I think, is out of hand.
People are already ranking Drake May ahead of Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know what we're doing. I mean, okay. I think Caleb Williams has looked very, very good over stretches of the season. He struggled on other parts of the season, and some of that, I have some questions about some usage and some decisions that are being made in Chicago, but that sounds like it won't last for very long if the players have any say what came out. But on a trade like this, one, we know Jonathan Brooks hasn't done anything, so there's that. But Caleb Williams has at least shown that he is going to be the quarterback for the Chicago Bears. Like, he's shown you that. He's shown some stretches of very, very good football. This is not an Anthony Richardson type situation where he's just played so bad that there's any concerns about bringing in a bench or Bryce Young type situation. Not at all. And imagine a year ago being able to trade Jonathan Brooks, a 25 first and a 25 second for Caleb Williams, the way that those rookies were valued. Never in a million years. And Brooks hasn't done anything to increase his value. I think there needs to be a lot more patience, or there needs to be a lot more trades for Caleb Williams.
Yeah, this is crazy at this point. Like, he's already about. I know the floor is low for Chicago, so that's hard to say. But he's already close to breaking their franchise records for a rookie quarterback. I think for passing touchdowns or something already. Like, he's already done better than Justin Fields has at this point. The receiving core isn't as good as we thought it would be. We don't know what's wrong with DJ Moore. Roma Dunze looks good. Honestly, my problem is maybe they should just put Roma Dunze in the Keenan Allen role at this point. Just stop doing whatever you're doing with Keenan Allen and just put Roma Dunze there. I don't get it. I get that you spend a draft pick on him, but it's just give Radunze the ball. And I know that I get it. Drake May is like on pace for 800 yards rushing at this point. That's what it is for the fantasy bros. I'm not saying to do this, even as a Pats fan. But what I am saying is that Caleb Williams doesn't suck just because he doesn't run the ball. And he does still run the ball. He's just not Jaden Daniels. And I'm going to be honest, I think there comes a point where Drake May doesn't have to run that much because hopefully we have a wide receiver in New England.
My good friend Matt Waldman always talks about basically the first 10 games of a quarterback's career. Defenses tend to play them very, very vanilla just to kind of figure out and see what this rookie is going to put on tape. After that, the adjustments come in, and I'll be curious to see if Drake May's rushing kind of survives those adjustments, or if NFL defenses figure that out a little bit, especially given the relative lack of tools around him.
I mean, at this point, all you need to do is rush for spy Drake May and then man the wide receivers, and you're probably fine. Hunter Henry will get some, but the offense just isn't very good, and it's not Drake May's fault. There's just not a lot of talent. We have one more Caleb Williams trade here. Lobo FF Den, Boy Lobo on Twitter. He sent Ricky Pearsall, Anthony Richardson, George Pickens, and a 25 third to get Caleb. Which side are you on that? Or do you think it's just a good trade, depending on if you're contending or rebuilding?
Caleb's side easily for me. I think that maybe Anthony Richardson turns it around. Maybe I'm just burnt from riding the Justin Fields carousel, for lack of a better comparison. But when you're looking at how they're going to accrue fantasy points, That's my thought. And you look at the lack of development in the passing game, it doesn't seem like there's been a lot of a patience for um, league teams to develop. And I've seen a lot of talk, especially recently this past week after the benching, of basically people are now encouraging quarterbacks to stay in college for extra time because one, they can get paid, but two, NFL teams are showing they're not overly interested in developing players. And I think Anthony Richardson needs a lot of development. And so I'm curious if that's going to happen now, because we're not seeing it with Trey Lance. We didn't see it with Justin Fields. There's just, we're not seeing it happen. And so that concerns me. Whereas if I can pivot off there and really the price, I mean, Pearsall's fine. Pickens, he's looked good, but I don't know if we're really going to get consistent top 12 type wide receiver production out of George Pickens. If I can move all that to pivot to Caleb Williams and reset and feel a lot better at my quarterback position, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I love your point on the fact that they're just not developing. I keep ranting about this. Last show I almost did it. I'm just kind of piggybacking on what Tom Brady said from high school on. I think I've already said on this show. There's a coach firing problem and a coach hiring problem. We have a problem where we have cronyism, where we just know some of these coaches are bad, but because they're in the boys club or they're a nepo baby, they get these jobs. So that is a problem. So then we get this idea, well, they should be a winner. You're so and so's son. You should bring that winning culture here. Fire him. So now we have a firing problem. So even the coaches that are developing or want the time to do that, they just don't have any of that time anymore, and it's just this cycle. And now there's no one that wants to develop anymore. Wide receiver, there's no developing wide receivers anymore. I don't think right now wide receivers are so good or used in such a fashion to cover up from the poor QB play that I think that's trickling down into quarterbacks. Well, you better be a stud since you got out of high school, because if you run to the NFL as a junior, your career is done. So
this was even before my time, but Red Auerbach took Larry Bird, and then Larry Bird spent another year in college as property of the Boston Celtics. So there's levels of precedence here. College players are now, they're basically athletes now with NIL and with that. Why can't, especially these quarterbacks, why can't Anthony Richardson go play another year in college? If the Colts decide, we've got the rights to Anthony Richardson, we want him on the field taking snaps, why can't Trey Lance, who has 3 years of college eligibility? I mean, certainly at a certain age, you probably have to cut it off, like 25, 26. We don't need 32-year-olds playing in college football.
Tell that to Cam Rising.
Well, yeah, but like Jerry Jones, if Jerry Jones wanted to say, hey, like Trey Lance isn't going to play for the Cowboys, but he's quote unquote under contract for the Cowboys, but I want him to be an Arkansas Razorback. Why can't he do that? And we've already blown well past the veil of collecting money, of amateurism, of all that stuff. Why can't we treat college a little bit more aggressively, especially at the quarterback position, as a developmental league?
Because we have the XFL. That's going to be a thing one day, Jeff.
No. It's never going to be a thing.
Oh, man. That's one day maybe we'll have a developmental league, but I doubt it.
We
I
do.
think you're
it's
right.
called college football.
It's true. They get paid now. Before we go any further, hit that like and subscribe button. As always, guys, we are a full-blown media company. We have our website there where I make draft content and dynasty content. Jeff has redraft and dynasty content. We're going to have big boards, more rookie stuff. We have more tools. And most importantly, guys, we're going to have our Black Friday sale so you can get in pretty cheap. So if you're looking for that special Black Friday deal, hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll keep you posted on that next week. The next guy is, we got some Puka trades. He got ejected from a game for throwing a punch. He didn't really do much because that happened early. Our buddy over at The Athletic, Jay Felicio, he sent Puka Nacua and got 225 firsts. Do you think that is too much or too little for Puka?
So I'm actually in this league.
Oh, you're in it? Okay.
Yeah. So let me double check here because yeah, these first one belongs to the team currently in second place because I'm currently in first place, and another belongs to a 5-3 team currently in sixth place.
So a
So
mid and a late.
a mid and a late first for Puka Nacua. To me, that's not enough for Puka Nacua. A mid and a late first. I understand Jay is rebuilding, so Jay basically posted his entire team is for sale, and he has denied my requests to add a James Conner to my lineup. But that's neither here nor there.
As a rebuilder?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he got a
Okay.
first for Josh Jacobs, so good on him. He got it. What did he get for Josh Jacobs? He got first in Trey Benson. No, he got a second in Trey Benson for Josh Jacobs.
I saw that trade. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're getting a lot of trades in this league right now. It's a Star Wars theme league, so that's a lot of fun. But yeah, this a mid and a late first for Puka. I still would probably prefer Puka.
Yeah. Especially now that I know that they're mid or late, because I mean, he's still young. And if you're going to get a wide receiver, you're hoping that he's Puka at that point. And, uh, like I said, it's top heavy and shallow. You basically got Tet, Luther, Isaiah Bond, maybe Evan Stewart. He looks better now, but he's had character issues. So who knows? Like, what happens there? Like, I'd probably rather have Puka as well. Second Puka trade from Aaron over on Twitter. He sent Puka Nacua, but he got Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Brooks. I don't like that either. That seems like the same trade, except I got two guys who already have some stank on them, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, we already talked about Jonathan Brooks not productive this year, and we already talked about Anthony Richardson. I think there's fair to be concerned about the long term outlook for Anthony Richardson. And Puka Nacua, admittedly, he's better than I remember. Like what I saw 2 weeks ago, that return, he's really good, and I think that I myself maybe downplayed the production from last year or this summer and like the return of Cooper Cup, some of those types of things. Seeing Nacua back on the field healthy, Puka Nacua is a very good football player. We don't know that Anthony Richardson or Jonathan Brooks are very good football players.
You know what's crazy? Like, one thing I've slept on too, to, like, come to my senses or pay for my sins. You forget that, like, Puka Nacua is 6'2" and 220 almost.
Yeah,
He
it
is
shows up.
huge.
Yeah,
Yeah, he is huge. Like, it just like he's pretty athletic. Like, I don't know, like, I don't even remember what his testing because it doesn't matter anymore. Like, he's just doing it on the field, but like being 6'2" and 220, it's underrated. He doesn't like look that big until you see him like on a yak play, and then you see like a move tight end essentially. So
yeah, yeah. And the mentality is the biggest thing too. I just loved. I'm still buzzing a little bit off his Amazon postgame show where he was talking about running the He's basically, if you give me a chance to run through somebody's face, I'm going to do it, and you'll just love to hear that from a wide receiver, especially
wide
that type
receiver,
of build.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's why that's why he thrives in those systems. They love those wide receivers that can block. He Heinz Ward would be smiling at Puka Nacua essentially too,
yes,
you know. Next we have some Brandon Aiyuk trades. Oh man, like it feels like they're almost heavy. You kind of said this at the beginning of the season that, he's getting older. He's 27, and now we have the lost season. He technically he's getting injured late. So like, when is he going to come back next season? At this point, and where your value is with him. DZ17 from Twitter. He sent Chris Godwin and Brandon Ayuk. He got Mike Evans and Debo Samuel. With that being said, I don't love this trade because he didn't get like a second back. Like, if he got like a second round pick, I feel like he could pay for the dynasty downgrades. Like, that's the cost for it. But right now, it just feels like you downgraded for nothing. And we don't even know what Mike Evans is going to be at this point when he comes back, who has a hamstring issue. Debo's routinely an injured player. So, like, what did you achieve besides risking it all?
yeah. And talk about getting a second back, and that can be tough in these types of situations where you're clearly giving up.
Desperate. Yeah.
Well, it's not so much that you're desperate. It's just that the team that you're making the deal with is clearly playing towards next year, the offseason. They don't want to trade their draft picks, but I like to pivot and look for players like a Blake Corum or like a Trey Benson or like that type of player that you still believe in the talent, but you see him kind of derailed because of the current situation, and you believe that situation might change. I think that those tend to be a little bit more liquid than somebody that is punting on this year, giving up a second, because um, in that situation, if I'm rebuilding and I'm giving up players that are producing right now for injured players that are out for the year, I know I'm going to draft the best player in the second round next spring. So I want my second round pick.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Then that I mean that's a good option too. Getting another player that's at least can gain you value in return, like or like a Ricky Pearsall is another good one too, where maybe he can do a little bit more next season, or they trade Debo or something. Number of things could happen, and you could gain value. Just straight up, just doesn't feel quite right. The next trade is my trade. Um, I am 7-2 in this league. Or no, I'm about to be 8-1. I'm sorry, I lied. I'm dominating. I have Lamar Jackson, David Montgomery, Tony Pollard, Marvin Harrison, Jaden Reed, Sam Laporta, RIP, Michael Pittman, Zay Flowers, Lad McConkey, Michael Wilson, Brock Purdy. Um, Pretty solid. This is my Najee Harris as well. That's somebody. Dalton Schultz, Derek Carr. I can't trade him for peanuts. This is a Devy league here. My one Devy league that I have, and I've done a really good job because it's a combined supplemental draft. So I've just done a really good job at nailing the supplemental picks when I can, like getting the right guys there that fall off. And because it's a combined pick, a lot of these guys are prioritizing the Devy players over the guys that we know could be good. So like Jaden Reed was like peanuts, and because guys are trying to get the next Devy quarterback instead of like a Jaden Reed. So I've done well there. But I traded Anthony Richardson and Brandon Aiyuk for Brian Thomas Jr. Is that an overpay for Brian Thomas Jr. or is that just time?
I mean, it's a little bit of an overpay, but I don't know that I hate it because I think we've seen enough from Brian Thomas Jr. that, is he going to be valued? Is he currently valued? Going to be valued as a top 12 Dynasty wide receiver after this year? I mean, if he stays on that trajectory, I would expect he's going to, maybe the overall production's not there, but the draft capital is there, that he is going to get the Puka Nacua treatment this offseason of, and I think it's right there. And so when you're looking at a player, like we've already talked about maybe the value decreasing on Brandon Aiyuk a little bit, and I mean the value could completely fall out of Anthony Richardson if we don't see anything positive over the
Mm-hmm.
second half of this season. So to move off of that and get a player that could be a top 10 dynasty wide receiver in, if he's not now already, in a couple of months, I think that's a fine deal, especially when you talk about the depth that you've been able to accumulate on your team. And I think that you're doing one of the things here that I really like to do about dynasty is when you have a contender roster, but you're just kind of you're flipping the dial a little bit in terms of picking up a younger player that's going to push your production and contending window along further.
Yeah, and it's like, and this is why like context and trades matter sometimes because like in a vacuum it feels like an overpay, but like I have four quarterbacks. I have Lamar Jackson, Sam Darnold, Brock Purdy, and Derek Carr. Like
You have,
I know at least that I have. So what?
you have two quarterbacks.
Oh, don't say that about Sam Darnold. Like he might have played somewhere, but regardless, I have two quarterbacks, and like I'm just trying to win at this point. And then the other guy that's ahead, he's got another super team. So I'm trying to get Michael Wilson out of my lineup consistently at that point, especially since Marvin Harrison Jr. is like hot and cold. Jaden Reed's hot and cold. Michael Pittman's there. Uh, you know, like that. So having someone like Brian Thomas Jr. just feels a lot better when you have a contending roster. Now, another guy that we need to talk about is Chris Olave. Um, it, I still think he's a buy depending on where he's at because I think maybe the Saints are realizing that they don't have it all together. Maybe they get a quarterback. Our buddy Joey Wright made this trade. he sent Chris Olave in a 25 fourth and got Pat Fryermuth in a 25 first. Feels bailing early to me. I don't know if he's contending and really needed Pat Fryermuth. It's Pat Fryermuth's better than a fourth. I'll say that. You know.
Yeah, I probably again want to know where the first is, and I mean certainly we hope Chris Olave makes a fast recovery, but part of you, like when you're trading for a first and you see the player go out of the lineup right after you trade him, you don't know that you feel the worst thing in the world because that thought he was going to augment the other roster, and now he's not getting production, but you have his first, so that's a thing that is happening there. But I would like to see maybe where that first lands. But you talk about Olave. I'm really curious how long he's going to be in New Orleans, because it really sounds like, from what his brother said yesterday, from what Olave's put out, they're going to try their best to get him out of there.
Love it. I'd love to hear it. I know a young QB in New England who would love to have him. So maybe something like that could happen. Boy, Jeff, I don't know what I'm gonna do. If we got Chris Olave, I don't know how to handle it.
All these dudes are falling over backwards to get to Washington because they want to play with Jaden Daniels. It's like I saw a story the other day of basically every single player that's not in a good situation is begging to get to Washington now that they buy into the ownership with Josh Harris. They get to play with Jaden Daniels. That franchise has long been a sleeping giant that was held back because Dan Gilbert was Dan Gilbert, and it's not Dan Gilbert. That's the Cavs owner. I'm blanking now.
Yeah, I was about to say
Dan Snyder.
Dan Snyder. I was about to say you could have.
Yes,
because like his same name as a Nickelodeon guy.
Yes, Dan Snyder. It was Dan Snyder, yeah. and now he's gone, and I think that's going to be a landing spot for somebody.
Yeah, you can't all go there, and like I said, they're still New England. They got a young guy there. I don't know. They have a winning culture. A boy can dream. We have another Chris Olave trade here. They sent Breece Hall in a 25 second, and they got just too much. They got Chris Olave, Devon Achane, a 26 first and a 27 first. I highlighted this because, like, obviously getting Chris Olave and Devon Achane was a win. If anything, your running backs were a wash, and then you turned a second into like 3 firsts. Like,
yeah, that's good work. This is one of the occasionally when you crowdsource trades, you get a trade of this person knows they won, and good on you, Chicken Fry 11. You won. This is a great deal.
One thing I will say though, only reason why I chose this one, it fit the theme of Chris Olave, but 2, a lot of people just don't care about 26 first or 27 first. So they're like, that's just free money, and they'll throw it away. A lot of beginners think like that as well. And you're doing really good at the 26 that's up in the air. I think some of these running backs are going to stay another year so they can make money and then get higher draft capital next year and make more money. So I think we'll see a lot of these guys stay back. But I mean, getting a 27 first, we know Jeremiah Smith, he don't need to stay. I don't think he's going to stay. I don't think Ryan Williams is going to stay. There's a lot of quarterbacks in that class that maybe they're good. Maybe they're the next, Bryce Young. We don't know, but at least they're exciting. We could be excited about them now. So I think this is really good at getting what is considered a discount because they're liquid assets that are only going to gain value every day. So that's the way you do it, folks. So thank you.
Free firsts. I mean,
yeah.
You can give me some 26, 27 firsts. Like, I'll put my hand out for those, but.
And another thing is, like, you don't have to wait on those. You could now you have 2 27 firsts. You could spend those to someone else. Like, that's like a lot of people in Dynasty, their biggest problem is that they cannot think more than 2 steps ahead. Like they can only think like here's my 2026 plan or here's whatever. This is why we try to preview rookies, tell you what's doing. Like we give you all this content so you could play 40 chess just like the pros. With that being said, that's the end of our trade show. If you guys have any more trades for next week, you can go ahead and pop those in the comments. As always, I'm Jagger May. That's Jeff Bell. Love you guys. We'll see you on the next one.